All right, Derrick, what's up, man?
How's it going,
Good to
man?
see you. Thank you for
Likewise.
being here. Thank you for your support of awesome music, people. I'm looking forward to introducing who you are to everybody. And kind of hear more about what you do with Sims Foundation. So let's go ahead and start there. Where are you from?
Uh, Born in Illinois,
Okay,
in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. My dad went to University of Illinois, so I was born there, but moved to Texas when I was about 2 years old.
okay.
Moved to a small town on the Gulf Coast, Clute, Texas.
Clute,
Yeah.
Texas.
So after graduating, my dad got a job at Dow Chemical Company,
Okay.
and so Clute, Texas, Lake Jackson, Freeport, Surfside, Angleton, Richwood, that whole area
Mm-hmm.
exists because of BASF and Dow and Texaco and all these,
Okay.
chemical plants that dot the Gulf Coast right there.
Right.
And so grew up there, and then came to Austin in 1999 to go to UT and never left.
Nice.
So yeah, like not an unusual story
Yeah. Yeah. So you've been in Austin since then.
since
You
then.
haven't gone anywhere. All right.
No.
And you have family here now?
We moved in my dad with us
Okay.
in 2020.
Okay.
Had some health issues, and so
Gotcha.
we brought him in to room in with us, and he's now living in a care home here in Austin.
Gotcha.
My mom and her husband and my little half brother live in Houston.
Okay.
Have a sister lives in Columbus, Ohio, and my brother and his family up in DC. So we're all over.
You're all over, man.
Yeah.
Holidays must be stressful or not. Maybe you just do what my wife likes to do and just kind of ignore it all and just want to stay home.
It's either one of two things. It's either, okay, you're coming to us, and that becomes a little stressful because we
Right.
have to host, from all over, or it's, all right, we have one, part of the family we'll go visit, or we just go visit her family, and then I
Yeah.
don't got to worry about anything.
Right on. So when you came to Austin, you studied at UT? What did you study?
Came in studying aerospace engineering.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, spent my first 3 years in aerospace engineering. And then towards the end of my junior year, realized I don't know what I want to do, but I don't want to do this.
Okay.
And so had some conversations with some folks, took some introductory courses in a few different, schools, and ended up falling into the School of Social Work.
Hmm.
And then took a couple of intro courses and really enjoyed it.
Wow.
And so that's what I graduated with.
So were you in education
No.
before or just the social work aspect of
So,
life?
yeah. So, again, not really knowing anything about social work.
Mhm.
Went into School of Engineering, was good at math and science all throughout school. And,
Okay.
my dad was an engineer. And so it was
Right.
just like, all right, well, it'll get me a job.
Yeah.
But then, as you move out of home and you're on your own and, you're getting exposed to different things, you kind of, you develop your own value system and kind
Right.
of your own ways of looking at life and the world. And so, really appreciated the opportunity to just kind of help others that were less fortunate.
Hmm.
I recognized pretty quick I was born into a position of a lot of different privileges and had, abilities and wanted to use any and all of that in order to
Right.
benefit those that were facing a little bit more of an uphill challenge. Didn't know much about social work. Honestly, thought it was just counseling, and I'm not a counselor.
Yeah. Well, it's
I-
certainly a calling of
Yeah.
sorts, right?
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, what I found out was there's two routes you can go with social work, right? You can go the clinical route where you can be like direct practice, or you can go more of administrative and policy and kind of affect change on a macro level.
Okay.
And so that's kind of the route that I went.
All right. And so what was your first role? You've held a couple positions in nonprofits here in town. What was the first nonprofit you worked with?
So I went back to volunteer at Ronald McDonald House Charities because when I was an intro student in the School of Social Work, you have to pick a nonprofit to volunteer for.
Okay.
And so I picked Ronald McDonald House Charities because my mom had an experience when my brother was born. She had to stay at the Ronald McDonald House in Houston when I was a freshman in college,
Wow. Okay.
and got the chance to visit her and really appreciated the services that they provided her. So went back to volunteer with them. When I graduated, wasn't really having I didn't have a job lined up. I was just bartending and doing the same thing I did when I was in school.
Yeah.
So I went back to volunteer because I had some free time. And as I was volunteering at the Ronald McDonald House, 3-4 months later, they had a position open up for house operations manager.
Okay.
And so I applied and got the job in '06. And so
All right.
in August of '06, started as the house operations manager with Ronald McDonald House Charities.
So you were with them for quite a while.
Yeah, almost 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I just kind of, grew with the organization. We grew from serving, 250, 300 families annually to serving over 3,000 families annually over the
God.
course of that time. We had one program here in Austin. And then, by the time I left, we had like 7 or 8 different locations throughout
Mhm.
Central Texas, and
Mhm.
it was fun to see the growth of a small nonprofit and understand kind of the processes and the timing and the things you need to implement in order to kind of build a
Yeah.
sustainable structure so you can grow.
Are there many organizations like the Ronald McDonald House outside of the Ronald McDonald House that do what they do?
Not really. Um, the Ronald McDonald House is pretty unique in that they, really are there to support the family of pediatric patients
Mhm.
for families coming in from out of town. And so, also various programs exist within the hospitals that support families that are living in town. It's
Right.
it's a it's kind of a one of a kind charity. 90% of pediatric hospitals around the world have a Ronald McDonald House Charities program of some kind associated with it. So they pretty much they corner the market on that.
Wow. I
Uh,
didn't realize the percentage was that high,
oh
man.
yeah, it's
Dang.
huge. It started in '74, something like that.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
there's actually a movie, I was just looking at it this morning, there's a movie that's coming out, it's called Aubrey's Children, and
It's about
it's about, Doctor, Aubrey Evans, who was the pediatric oncologist, at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia,
okay.
who helped start the Ronald McDonald House. So anyway, it started there, I mean, and yeah, today there's over like 300,
Wow.
locations around the world.
Yeah.
Fisher House is another kind of cool organization that's
Hmm.
really associated with the military. And so, on a lot of military bases or next to hospitals that serve a lot large military population, there will be an organization called the Fisher House. And they do similar work to what Ronald McDonald House Charities does, but it's specialized for military families.
Okay. Wow.
So other than those 2 organizations, I'm not really familiar with, many others. I'm sure there's like St. Jude's, I'm sure has
Yeah.
like a house associated with their hospital.
Yeah.
But as far as being, um, a primary care provider for a global population like that, Ronald McDonald House Charities, I think, is one of the only ones.
Well, I've had friends and that have gone through those tough times, and it's the impact is insurmountable. I mean, what that organization does, and I don't need to tell you that you lived it, but just the little bit of relief that it can provide for a family, even local families. It's just a very important organization, and it's been around for a while for a reason, and I just hope it continues to thrive. So what made you get involved with Sims?
Yeah, honestly, it was kind of out of the blue. Uh, you know, I had served in the interim role, and then we brought in the new CEO at RMHC, and I I didn't, I guess, prepare myself or understand that I would get more opportunities coming my way because of that. Service during as the interim CEO during that time. So I had several, organizations contact me and several different recruiters kind of reach out with different opportunities for other nonprofits. Some were lateral moves, some were, organizational leader positions with other organizations that, I didn't really have necessarily a passion for. And, they obviously all great missions and all good work that was being done is just nothing was really, attractive enough to leave RMHC. I had a great position. It was a great organization. We were, welcoming a new organizational leader, and things were gonna, become exciting. And I was all prepared to just kind of continue on. But then a recruiter for the Sims Foundation reached out and started telling me a little bit more about the organization. And honestly, I was surprised that after spending 20 years in the nonprofit community here in Austin, I really didn't know much about them, and I
Really?
really hadn't heard much about them. And so the I started, doing a little bit more research and, talked with the recruiter and learned a little bit more about the population that they serve and the mission. And it just really spoke to me. I've always envied musicians, and I like to tinker on
Hmm.
musical instruments. And if you don't know anything about music, then I can fool you into thinking I know what I'm doing. But if you are a musician, then I'm just complete
Yeah.
fraud when I'm on. It's just I'm having fun, right?
What do
And
you
so,
play?
oh, piano, guitar. I like to monkey
Well,
around on the drums.
any bands?
No, definitely not. No, but I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. But, so I've always appreciated, the community of musicians, and
Hmm.
just really appreciated their art and the
Yeah.
work, and just the hard work that I know that goes into it, because if you've tried to play anything for any amount of time, you know it takes practice and practice, and you've got to,
Yep.
really be determined and steadfast at getting better at it. And so, that combined with obviously living in Austin and loving the live music capital of the world moniker that we have,
Mhm.
loving the fact that I can go anywhere on any given night and catch a cool show, or during
Yeah.
South by or ACL or Fun Fest back in the day. You could just walk into these festivals and not even have anything on your agenda, but just you hear something that speaks to you and you can go and check it out. And
Yep.
maybe you're, on the cusp of someone who's going to, blow up, or maybe you're catching somebody on their way down from their peak, or maybe you just kind of vibing with somebody who's just kind of enjoying what they're doing. And
Yeah.
so, the opportunity to serve that community in any capacity is attractive. But then when I learned more about the specific focus of mental health support and substance use disorder recovery needs, that is, the mission of Sims. I've had so many friends and family members that have dealt with mental health challenges and substance use,
Yeah.
issues that I could definitely, just from a personal perspective, understand the need for those services.
Yeah.
And so combining the population that Sims serves and the mission and the focus on mental health, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It was also an opportunity for me to, kind of maybe take the next step in my professional career. And
Sure.
so, those three factors really made the decision easier than it would
Mhm.
have been to switch to any other organization.
So, now that how long have you been in your position?
About 15 months now, so
Okay.
a little over a
So,
year.
y you had a respect and appreciation for the mission, but has your outlook on mental health and mental health care changed since you started in your position?
I wouldn't say the outlook has changed so much as the breadth of knowledge or the
Yeah.
understanding of the different ways mental health can be affected or treated or
Mm.
helped has grown. And
Mm.
so definitely have a deeper appreciation for the mental health providers
Yeah.
that do this work day in and day out, especially
Yeah.
because going back to, again, my time in the School of Social Work, understanding there's a clinical route and there's the administrative and policy route.
Right.
And I immediately recognize that the direct practice and the clinicians are a special breed of people that can get down in the dirt and get down with the clients and have open, honest conversations about
Right.
some really painful situations or challenges that they're going
The
through.
worst of the worst of the worst. I
Exactly.
mean,
And so, yeah, it's, I think my appreciation for the providers, my appreciation for um, the availability of mental health resources to musicians here in town has grown quite a bit.
right. So, let's get into Sims a little bit. What would you describe the mission of Sims to somebody who's never heard of it, or
Pretty
how? How?
pretty
What?
simple. So, I think the mission of Sims in the simplest form is, providing mental health and recovery resources to music industry professionals and their families. And it's pretty simple,
And their
and
families.
their families.
Okay.
And it's
I didn't
it's
even
the
know that.
entire music ecosystem, right? And so
Right.
if you talk to a performer and they tell you about the success that they have and what goes into making a good show, what goes into, having a good recording session, what goes into having a good tour, they're going to tell you their support teams play a huge
Mhm.
role, right?
Mhm.
So it's the sound engineers, it's the lighting techs, it's the stage contractors, it's the venue staff, it's the tour bus drivers, it's the radio DJs,
Top to
it's the
bottom.
top to bottom, right? It's that entire ecosystem that goes in to making Austin the live music capital of the world, right?
Right.
And so you can't just support the people on stage.
Yeah.
You have to support that entire ecosystem to make sure that those folks don't get pushed out to the margins. And so, the mission of Sims, not only supporting the musicians, but the entire ecosystem and their family members.
Mhm.
And that's one thing that I really appreciated coming from Ronald McDonald House Charities, was just understanding how significantly family units are impacted when any individual member of that family unit is going through a challenge.
Right.
And Dr. Audrey Evans had a great quote, and it'll always stick with me. She says, "When you're treating a sick child, you're not just treating a sick child, you're treating a sick family."
Mm.
And so I kind of look at it as the same thing. If you've got a member of your family going through a mental health challenge or a challenge with substance use disorders,
Yeah.
that's not the only person, that individual is not the only person impacted.
Yeah.
It's everyone around
I
them that
agree.
loves them and wants them to see themselves succeed and wants them to kind of help them come out of this challenge.
Yeah.
So, it's really important not only to just, treat the music industry professional, but any one of their family members and or direct dependents that are going to be helped.
Yeah, I mean that your your story there just kind of struck a nerve for me personally. I mean, when my son was sick, he went to Dell Children's, and I guess that's something that people, maybe with children understand it's more of a family impact, but when
Mhm.
it comes to adults, maybe it's more singular focused. Okay, Steven is dealing with this issue. It's Steven's issue, but people don't realize how much it affects the greater tribe, if you will, around that person. So, and I didn't know that that Sims offered that support
Yeah.
to to the family, and that's tremendous. So, who started Sims?
So Sims Foundation, this is actually the 30th year. This year is our 30th
All
anniversary.
right,
And so 30 years ago
congratulations.
in 1995, it started and is named after Sims Ellison. So Sims Ellison was a bassist for a heavy metal band here in town called Pariah,
Okay.
and they were the next big thing. They used to play at the back room all the time,
Mm,
and there's actually a documentary that's making its way around the film circuits right now and the film festival circuits called Bloody and Bruised, and it's
the
it's
Bloody and
about
Bruised.
yep, and it's
Write that
about
down.
the back room and the scene in the mid '90s. And Pariah is heavily featured, as is the Sims Foundation is featured in that film because they were so intertwined. So Sims Ellison was the bassist for Pariah. Pariah was basically going to be like the next big thing, similar to like Guns N' Roses type of vibe,
Okay,
right? And so they were
gotcha.
they were signed by Geffen Records, right? Geffen Records had Guns N' Roses.
Okay.
They were flown out to record in Madonna's studios in L.A. They were being, promised they were going to be like the next big thing, and timing is everything, right? And so while all this
Yeah.
is happening, 80s hair metal bands are on the decline. Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, the whole Seattle grunge scene is on the
Yeah.
way up, right? And so Geffen
Mm,
Records apparently was just kind of trying to figure out what to do with this, band that is coming from an era that they see as fading. And at no fault of the guys in Pariah, they were still making music and really bringing in large crowds to their shows, and their record got shelved. They told that their promotion was going away, and they went from this roller coaster high of, recording in Madonna studio and like, being next to Guns N' Roses and being signed by Geffen Records to now being basically told, go back to your retail jobs that you had in Austin.
wow.
And so Sims Ellison fell into a pretty bad bout of depression and never got himself out of it, and
Wow.
ended up committing suicide in 1995. And there was an article that came out about a week later that was written by Michael Corcoran, who was a music writer for the Austin American Statesman at the time.
Okay.
And he penned an article, and basically at the end of it was saying, "This happens far too often. We need some support system for our musicians to be able to fall back on, so that this doesn't continue to happen over and over again. It's the same story, and nothing changes. Somebody's got to do something." And Don Ellison, who was the father of Sims, along with Alejandro Escovedo and Walter Taylor, I believe, and Don Harvey and Wayne Nagel. Don Harvey and Wayne Nagel were the owners of the Austin Rehearsal Center back in the day. They read this article and they took it a call. They took it as a call to action.
Wow.
And there was about $5,000 raised at a memorial service for Sims
Hmm.
Ellison. They took that $5,000 and they started the Sims Foundation.
Wow.
And so here we are 30 years later, and we've served over 25,000 individuals. We've invested over $50 million worth of services into the community. We've provided over 300,000 different sessions of mental health, counseling sessions to the music community. And so it's it's a mission that is much needed, and it is something that continues to have more demand
Hmm.
than available services.
Yeah. So, do you feel like the original mission of the organization is still how it's operated today, still alive and well today, or has it shifted and changed with the times at all? I mean, you kind
Yeah,
of touched on it a little bit, but
yeah, I think there was a real focus to include the music industry ecosystem probably a little bit after. So I'm not sure if that's how it started originally. I think it was
okay,
primarily for musicians,
right,
but over the course of time, the leadership realized, and you know, the board members over time realized this, you know, really is an ecosystem that needs to be supported.
Yeah.
And so that came into play at some point. You know, obviously, I'm still, you know, relatively new to the organization, and you know,
Mhm.
the historical data hasn't been as easily to access as
Yeah.
you know, you would hope. But I think to the core, the mission has stayed the same. And what we've realized is, while we want to keep the mission the same, how can we adapt our practices so that we can serve more? We know Central Texas is not the only place that has a rich music community, right?
Right.
How can we expand? How can we, you know, open ourselves up to serving other music communities
Mhm.
that obviously need it? We hear it time and time again from musicians and industry professionals that travel and tour the country. They talk about Sims and
Wow.
how Austin has this deliberate support structure for the music community, and people in other cities and other states are just blown away. They're like, How? What? This is amazing!"
'Cause it's
And
Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas, exactly. That's why. And so, you
Yeah.
know, we recognize that
Wow.
there is a larger need, and so we're just trying to figure out how do we set ourselves up so that we can meet that need.
So how does it work logistically? You touched on kind of who it serves. So it's musicians, it's techs, it's the drivers. Um, just logistically, if I'm an individual who wants to seek help, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah. It's pretty simple. We have a phone number and an online website where we have some forms that people can fill out and let us know that they need help.
Hmm.
You know, the biggest thing that I find is we need to increase awareness. In order to make access to care easy, people need to know that the care is available.
Right.
And so what we're really trying to do now is focusing on how do we break out of our echo chamber, and you know, we can talk to the same Austin industry folks and the same music community folks we've been talking to, and they know about Sims. They love Sims. I hear about it all the time.
Hmm.
The term Sims saved my life comes up over and over and over again. It's just humbling every time I hear that.
Yeah.
But how do we get into those communities that don't know about Sims? How do we get into those communities that need our services just as much, but may not have the awareness or the comfort in approaching Sims for care? Right.
Right.
So the biggest thing is to just make people, you know, aware that if they know someone in the music industry that is battling depression or a mental health challenge or substance use disorders, there's a confidential phone number on our website they can call. They can visit our website, simsfoundation.org. Uh, and there's an eligibility, there's a services form, there's an interest form they can fill out. And then within 2 or 3 days, our clinical team will reach back out to them and start that conversation. And it's really a conversation. It's one of the things that I think Sims Foundation has done so well over the course of the last 30 years is just that personalized care model of not having a cookie cutter approach to connecting folks to care, but it's really personalized and individualized so that we are trying to make sure that the people that approach us get the care that they are seeking.
Hmm.
And, you know, it's really client centric.
Yep.
So they call us, they email us, our team reaches out to them, they start that discussion, and then they connect them with the care provider, whether it's mental health counseling, psychiatric med management, or substance use disorder recovery services. Our team has a broad network of over 120 providers
Okay.
that will provide one form of that service.
Are all the providers local?
The vast majority of them are all local.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all in Texas.
Yep.
Some, you know, are a little bit further out of Austin, but it really, again, and it goes back to working with the client. Do they want virtual care? Do they
Hmm.
want in-person care? And so that'll direct our team on kind of how to connect them.
So do y'all have what's the process on kind of reading through, I'll just, for lack of a better term, applications for, you know, is there a geographic kind of fence around your service
Currently, there is,
area?
yeah. So currently, we serve Travis County and then the 6 surrounding counties.
Okay.
And so, and it's been that way for, you know, since the dawn of Sims, right? So
Yeah.
since 1995, that's
Right.
basically been the area of focus. What
Okay.
we're finding is more and more folks are having to move into outlying areas because cost of
Cost of
living
living.
and, you know,
Yeah.
challenges of trying to find you know, stable job that will allow you to also focus on your craft is becoming more difficult.
Mhm.
So we recognize that we're going to have to also start expanding our outreach and expanding our services. So
Yep.
starting 2026, we are kind of playing with the idea of expanding into Comal County. And
Okay.
so we've had several meetings with the folks over at Green. We've been talking with some folks at the New Braunfels Chamber of Commerce, and are really kind of recognizing that there's a rich community that has sprung up
Absolutely.
in Comal County, and how can we support that community as well. So yes, the goal is to eventually expand, but again, we want to do it in a very strategic way
Mhm.
so that we don't get over our skis and overpromise.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up that point, just about expansion. It's a small expansion, but it gets a lot of people
Yep.
within that. I was involved with Austin Sunshine Camps, and they've had conversations, obviously, and have done it. They've expanded recently out to Lake Travis,
Nice.
and they're talking about, okay, is there anywhere else outside of the greater Austin area? There's absolutely a need,
Oh yeah.
and I think it's unfortunately a common practice with nonprofits that have a level of success, due to the amount of people that have the need, that need to expand and want to expand, and obviously it just comes down to resources.
100%.
So
Without the resources, um, you can't expand. You
you
can't
just
serve more. I
it's
mean, there's a saying, no mission, or I'm sorry, no money, no mission,
yeah,
right? And I mean, it's oversimplifying, but
yeah,
it really does call out the fact that nonprofits are sometimes viewed in a different light than for profits.
hmm,
When, in all honesty, the only difference is, instead of taking your profit and dividing among shareholders for bonuses or end of year payments, you're rolling that operating right back into the operating
right
funds
back,
for the
yep,
next year. It's not that nonprofits do not need to have a stable business model, or that they're not looking to grow financial resources.
right,
It's just that when those resources are grown, they can then increase their services and
yep,
increase their client base. And so we know the needs there. And to your point, there's several other organizations that understand the need is greater than the available services. And so how do you close that gap? If I had that answer, I wouldn't be working. I'd be a
yeah,
millionaire. But
yeah,
it's definitely something that is, especially in the current financial environment, in the current economic environment. There's a lot of uncertainty, and
hmm,
so there's a trickle down effect where, when federal funds are pulled from, projects and from grants, then corporations and other entities and foundations have to step up and help meet that gap.
yep,
Well, when they're redirecting those resources, what organizations are being impacted because of those redirections?
yep,
And so it's unfortunate. There's a lot of organizations right now that are struggling, and a lot of smaller nonprofits that do amazing work that just aren't able to keep up, and some of those resources are being diverted. So just uh, it's kind of scary times right now for some nonprofits, and
yeah,
and we're no different. We went through a pretty challenging time at the end of last year, where we had to really kind of look at our service model and
mm,
figure out, how do we do more with less funding? How,
yeah,
how do we even just keep the same level of services with a decreasing funding base? So there's two things we need to do. One is figure out how to make our services a little bit more sustainable, and also figure out how do we reach outside and grow our network of support. How do we go out and solicit more resources? We can't just keep expecting more funding from the same folks. We have to go out and get
right,
more funding from new supporters and new
right.
donors.
So, how does it, kind of going back to logistics, before I get into my next question? How does it work with insurances, if at all? Is there any integration with insurance companies? I mean, I'm sure it's healthcare, so I'm sure there is.
Yeah,
But
yeah, we implemented using people's access to healthcare last year, at the very beginning of this year. That's one of the reasons we kind of went through last year's strategic transition. Was we recognized that over 80% of our clients have a health insurance plan.
hmm,
Prior to that realization, or us getting that data, we really didn't tap into people's access to that healthcare
yeah,
for mental health or substance use recovery
okay,
services. And so, what part of the staple of our new service model is just simply asking that question when folks sign up: do you have health insurance? And if you do, well, what is our ability to access care for you through that
hmm,
resource?
right,
We have found about a 65% success rate so far of being able to connect folks to care if they have a health insurance plan. And so what that's done is it's increased our provider network. We've also started working with some payers, some insurance companies, on expediting a process to have our existing providers become credentialed under their
Mm,
insurance umbrella
I see.
so that if they are seeing clients that have a health insurance plan through this company, then instead of us paying for the cost of that care, the insurance company can now pay for the cost of that care. And if a copay is too high or a premium is too high, then we still have a um, financial assistance program that we can help supplement the cost of that.
Okay.
It's just going to be a lesser hit for Sims
Right.
to supplement a cost of a copay versus supplementing the cost of the entire care. So we recognize there are organizations here in town that have been doing great work since the ACA came out in order to help musicians and the music community connect to access to healthcare.
Yeah.
So ham and foundation communities, that's what they do, right?
Yeah.
And so how can we leverage the work that they've been doing so well in order to benefit the folks that need SIM services?
So how much do you integrate with HAM and other nonprofits such as HAM Foundation communities?
Fairly often, there's again, I think a a deliberate focus for Austin to support the music community. And in order to do that, you've got to have a public-private partnership, right? And
Mhm.
so part of that is there are several nonprofits here in town that focus on the supporting the music community.
Yeah.
And so, forgive me because I'm going to forget some of them, but
No, it's all right.
you've got Sims Foundation, you've got Ham, you've got Home, you've got Sonic Guild, you've got the A&R Foundation, you've got ATX musicians. You've got a lot of focus on supporting this music community. And so uh, all of us understand that we are helping this community from different angles.
Mhm.
What we're really trying to work on now is how do we improve our communication and collaboration with each other so that we're not duplicating efforts. We can clearly communicate to the community how we're serving this community in different ways that isn't duplicating efforts so that everybody understands why it's important for all these organizations to exist
Yeah.
because people in the music industry are just like everybody else, right? I mean, you've got housing needs, you've got childcare needs, you've got
Yep.
healthcare needs, you've got insurance needs, you've got needs for um, job training, financial literacy. You've got needs for helping you book gigs, and so there's a lot of dynamics that folks in the music community need assistance with.
Right.
And so these nonprofits are doing a fantastic job of trying to meet the need in those various areas. Austin Music Venue Alliance is another one where
I'm not
uh,
familiar with what they do.
so they are an advocacy arm for the music venues here in town, right? I mean, so
Never
visit
knew they
Visit
existed.
Austin is a website that promotes tourism
Right.
into Austin, right?
Mhm.
They list about 158 venues here in town. And then you've got the Music Venue Alliance of Austin, which kind of takes that and narrows it even more and says, okay, well, which are the venues that honestly, that's their business?
Mhm.
They have live music, and that's what they do.
Right.
If there's not a show going on,
Mm,
then there's nothing going
Those
on.
doors aren't open.
Exactly.
Right.
And so, those folks have been fortunate to work with the Venue Alliance in order to have um, a singular voice when approaching governor's office or
Mm,
mayor at city hall
right.
in order to say, hey, these are the interests that we have and these are the things that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So again, the one of the first conversations I had before starting with Sims, I was hired, but I hadn't started yet. I met Pat Bukta with Austin, Texas musicians at Cherrywood Coffee House. We were sitting there, and he was giving me his perspective on the space and kind of welcoming me into this environment. And he had a really good point that it stuck with me. Is Austin can call itself the live music capital of the world, not because there's more music than anywhere else, not because there's more musicians per capita than anywhere else, it's because of the intent and the intentionality behind supporting this community and recognizing that if you don't have that deliberate support, then organically it can go the way of so many other cities and rich music communities that have lost that identity.
I'm smiling so big right now because I ask every guest question, what do you think about the term live music capital of the world? And 95% of the conversations come back to, well, if you take it literally, yeah, you walk down 6th Street and there's music. You walk down Broadway in Nashville, there's music. But it's the community of Austin musicians and the community that rallies around that truly makes it, in my opinion, the live music capital of the world, but not because of the community.
Exactly.
And I mean, what you just said hit the nail on the head, man.
Yeah.
And
No, you're
that's
right. I mean, I've been to Nashville, I've been to New Orleans, you've been to Chicago, I mean,
yeah,
there's other rich music communities
yeah,
out there,
absolutely.
but it's almost taken for granted.
Hmm.
And that's what we don't want to have happen here in Austin
Right.
is, we don't want to lose sight of the hard work that so many organizations and that so many people have put into making sure that we can continue to call ourselves that.
Yeah.
And if we lose sight of that, then we could, have that moniker go away, and that would be a really just a huge detriment to our, I think, our cultural identity.
But that's what I was going to say. Identity as
Yeah.
a city. Take it for what it's worth. Austin's current identity is completely different than what it was even 15 years ago. But
Yep.
the baseline has always been music,
Yep.
in
100%.
my opinion. And
And
so,
I think one of those things that I would love to just help raise awareness about is, Austin's population doubles every 20 years, right? It's like clockwork, right? Give or take.
yeah,
And so there's a ton of people that continually move to Austin, right? A lot of companies moving their headquarters in and
yep,
around Austin and Central
oh yeah,
Texas, and you've got a ton of industries and business leaders recruiting employees to come to Austin. And what's one of the first things they tell? It's the live music capital of the world.
yeah,
It's got this cool vibe. You can go check out
yeah,
shows and hobnob with some cool musicians.
hmm,
Well, if you're recruiting people to come on the backs of that reputation, what are you doing as a business leader to step up and support that? And
yes,
that's where, I want to get into corporate boardrooms, and I want to get into other, chambers of commerce, and I want to, raise awareness to those business leaders and tell them, well, here's how you can support the reputation that you're recruiting off of the back of.
yeah,
And part of that is making sure that people's mental health and our music community's mental health is taken care of and it's addressed. One of the things that I think, I've really learned, and you asked about my kind of perception of mental health
hmm,
since joining Sims. To go back to that real quick, one thing I did learn is it's become more clear is your mental health is that first domino. If your mental health isn't addressed, then it's going to cascade into other issues, right? Your mental health challenges or your substance use disorders uh, will turn into physical manifestations of that stress. I was having this conversation with my cousin the other day, and he was talking about a health issue he experienced, and he went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, "Stress less." Easier said than done,
got it.
right? Yeah, easier said than done. But you think about all of the physical manifestations that can happen if you are stressed and you're not managing your anxiety or your depression. I mean, it does lead to health issues,
Yeah,
strokes, tumors, ulcers. You've got these
cancers,
cancers, exactly. And so, if you're not addressing your mental health, then maybe it leads to a physical manifestation of that. Maybe it leads to some unhealthy coping mechanisms that
hmm,
lead you
yep,
into substance use disorders.
right,
And then if those aren't addressed, then maybe it leads to job loss, loss of family and friend networks, loss of employment, loss of housing. And so you've got this domino, this singular domino that if you don't pay enough attention to your mental health, what else is going to fall after that?
yeah. Yeah, you're right. Domino's, and that's a hard train to stop if you get to a real bad spot,
Exactly.
because then you're putting band-aids on all the other things and not focusing on the root.
Yep.
Because if you have a family and you're having a housing issue, well, the first thing you're going to do is provide housing for your family,
Yep.
not go talk to somebody about your mental health. And so yeah, that's a great point. So what are the biggest challenges with running a mental health organization that you think people just might not know about, realize, understand? What?
I think there's always been stigma associated with mental
Mhm.
health,
Right.
right? And it's becoming less, which is great. Um, you know, you asked about the mission of Sims. It's not only addressing the mental health and substance use disorder recovery needs of our clients, it's also decreasing stigma through education. And so, how can we shine a light and invite people to be more open about their mental health challenges that they've experienced on their own? And mental health challenges don't have to be so acute that someone needs now inpatient, hospitalization, right?
Right.
That's like the worst case scenario.
Mhm.
Like mental health challenges could be like, I'm in a funk. I've not been able to get out of this funk for the last, couple weeks or month. And people are starting to now tell me that, they're asking me what's going on, what's wrong, that's a mental health challenge.
Yeah.
Uh, Stigma associated with needing mental health services or needing substance use disorder services, I think is still one of the biggest barriers we have, not only for people reaching out to access those services, but for seeking support of organizations like Sims Foundation that focuses on those services. I think one of the only benefits that came from the pandemic
Mm.
and that whole period where people were locked in and isolated is the concept of how that impacts your mental health, and addressing your mental health needs has become more mainstream to talk about.
Absolutely.
I
I agree.
don't think that stigma is as strong for mental health needs or services as it was prior to that time period. So I do
I
think
agree.
I
Yeah.
think that's a moment in time we can probably, mark as an identifier of, okay, this is where things started to change.
I mean, personally, for me, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't necessarily because of the COVID times, but it coincided with everything else that was going around. So I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, I don't think we can say the same thing about the stigma associated with substance use disorder.
Hmm.
I don't think there's enough people that are educated or informed enough to recognize that it is a chemical imbalance in the brain. There is something physically going on inside that leads someone to addiction more than others,
Yeah.
and oftentimes it's looked at as a morality failure
Hmm.
or a lack of strength in
Right.
someone's character.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's where we fail as a society is trying to put people in a hole or put people in a box who are dealing with addiction issues, is by saying, well, they can just pull themselves out of it without any help. And science has shown that's not the case.
Right.
There is
Yeah.
brain chemistry that's going on that really differs from individual to individual. And so, if you're fortunate enough to not have that challenge, fantastic. Um, how can we leverage our resources to help those that do have that challenge?
Yeah.
And so, I do still see a lot of growth needed in that area, in connecting folks to supporting that line of services. 90% of the services we provide at Sims, Foundation is mental health counseling and psychiatric medication management. That 10% that, really revolves around the recovery service line is probably the most urgent. When folks reach out and they say, hey, I want to connect to a counselor, they're typically not in crisis.
Right.
When folks reach out and they say, I need help with my addiction, they're always in crisis.
Yeah.
They need help then and there, and tackling that challenge and addressing that need in a timely manner is important, because that willingness to accept help might change the next day.
Oh, yeah, or the next hour,
Yeah,
you go and you fall into your trap the next hour and you don't wanna go seek help anymore, and so,
exactly.
yeah. So what progress do you think we've made in the space? I mean, you talked about how COVID, the getting out of COVID kinda helped at least with the stigma, but, I mean, and specifically in the music community, have you seen, you've only been in your position 15 months, but have you seen a kind of a forward progress movement on anything specifically?
Yeah, there's been several artists that have recently, come out and spoken in support of the need for mental health resources in the music community, right? I mean, you talk about, there's been some articles in Rolling Stone where Wade Bowen and Ben Queller have talked about the need. You've got Noah Kahan and Chaperone on a larger stage that have
Mhm,
highlighted this need for the
mhm.
music community to really support the musicians and industry professionals' mental health.
Yeah,
So I have seen, just in my short time with the organization, some changes in recognizing that that's a need. But as with anything, that's, it's a slow ship to turn,
yeah,
and so there's so much more work that needs to be done. There's just so much more focus that needs to be given to that. And, I think also there's barriers that exist culturally.
yes.
There's certain cultures that might embrace accessing mental health services more
Mhm.
than others.
Yep.
And so what we are trying to do is become culturally sensitive to that and, really identify how can we get in front of this diverse music community that we have here in Central Texas that, spans so many different genres and so many fusions of genres now
Yep.
that, we can talk about our services eloquently to different audiences.
Yep.
And so how can we share our message so that it's not a cookie cutter approach, but it's
Yep.
more of a culturally sensitive approach where we're talking to those and meeting them where they are and using trusted community leaders that can help share our message.
It's interesting point about the cultural aspect of it. My family on my dad's side came from Lebanon through Mexico, and 3 generations before me did nothing but work. There was no mental health,
Nope.
and so from a cultural perspective, even some of, like my grandfather who's not around, but that generation, that's where, I mean, mental health was not a thing in
N-
the American culture,
No, definitely not.
and and so now that, well, to put it frankly, life is easier, yet those challenges still remain. And
Yep.
so there has to be a shift, like you said, to where seeking help is part of the norm,
Yeah.
and
I think, and it sounds like you're from a similar era. I mean, growing up, uh, you know, being born in 1980 and growing up in a small town in Texas, don't cry.
yeah,
Especially if you're, a boy growing up. Like,
yeah,
don't show your emotions.
hmm,
Pick yourself up. Don't just help yourself get through whatever you're going through. Right?
yeah,
Don't ask for help.
right,
That was like the mentality, right? And that was like
yeah.
something to aspire to.
And it wasn't ever necessarily said, "Don't go seek help." It was just
No, it was
like,
just
"Take care
implied.
of it. Take care
Exactly.
of it."
Yep. It's
Yeah,
all yeah, it was just kind of, subtly implied. And I think as we continue to understand a little bit more about brain chemistry and mental health challenges and are becoming more open about talking about it, we're learning that it is a chemical imbalance often. There's something going on inside that isn't visible, but it's just as real as a broken arm
hmm,
or a broken leg.
right,
And I think providing access for primary care or physical illnesses or trauma or injuries is super simple. Everybody understands there's a need when somebody falls down and breaks a leg, right?
yes. Well, it's
Um,
right there in
it's
front of
right
you.
there in front of you, right?
Yep,
And so it's easy to see. It's in front of your eyes. What we don't see is the invisible killer, right? We don't see the invisible pain.
yep,
And so what we want to try to do is just invite people to just ask that simple question to their friends and their families. How are you doing?
hmm,
And 99% of the time, it's gonna be fine, I'm great, but maybe that one time that you ask, that's the lifeline that's, that person needed.
yeah,
And, and when you ask that question, be ready to listen, don't don't just treat it like some kind of, off the cuff remark that you're gonna say and then just go about your day.
yeah,
I do think that there's a lot of value in just making people understand that they're not alone and isolated.
yeah,
And so that's, I think one of the biggest things that leads to people to develop depression and suicidal tendencies is feeling like there's nowhere else to turn.
yeah,
And so if you can be that friend or family member that is that point, that lifeline, who knows if you're saving a life or not, but it's always
yeah.
worth that question, I think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm in the construction industry, and I think we're always number 1 or 2 in divorce and number 1 or 2 in mental health issues, I think specifically suicide.
Wow.
And that's the broader industry from a management level to actual tradesmen.
Yeah.
And so it's been a big push for us, not just as a company, but I think as an industry to recognize that.
Yeah.
And you talk about a cultural shift. That's one of the last few industries that really, it requires a lot of grit to wake up every day and go work 8 to 10 hours a day in the sun, and
Oh yeah.
um, you know oil and gas, farming and ranching. Those are all kind of in the same boat in terms of, it takes a lot of getting over whatever you think you might be going through and
Hmm.
just having to grin and bear it, right? And so yeah, it's just going back to the cultural thing. it's a cultural thing, and so
Yeah, and even within an organization, an organizational culture, like, how can
mm,
today's leaders communicate to their teams that it's okay to admit when you need help. It's okay to ask for help.
mhm,
It's okay to not be okay.
yeah, right,
And I think setting that example as leaders today is only going to show a good example for generations coming up to break that cycle of this feeling or this thought that you just have to pull yourself together and get
yeah,
over it.
yeah,
There's I think just a huge um, plus for not only the industries but the workers when leadership can have that culture of just
yeah,
understanding that while it may be desirable for you to leave your personal life at home and then when
mhm,
you come to work just be at work. Nobody can do that.
nobody.
We're a whole person, right? So
Oh, man,
while you can try to not think about what's going on in your personal life while you're at work, it's still going to impact you.
absolutely, and I think about that a lot, um, more recently with my work and what I'm doing. I feel like there's such a fine line of this is just my personal opinion. There's such a fine line of working hard and pushing yourself to obtain a goal. That line to burnout is such a fine, I mean, it's such a switch, but once you flip that switch, you are done.
Yeah.
You might not think you're done, but your brain is done.
Mhm.
And so that's something that I'm really careful about with my team and I about just managing that burnout and managing that stress. I mean, you're running an organization. It's no different in your organization, I'm sure, with just and especially with what you're doing where um there's not a lot of I don't want to say certainty, but there's a lot of things that you have to chase to keep a baseline maintained within a nonprofit organization. You were just talking about resources, right?
Oh yeah.
And so that is probably the number one stressor, right, within your organization because you want to keep providing these services, but if you're not grinding out on the campaign trail, so to speak, and getting those fundraisers, it makes your job impossible.
Yeah, no,
And so,
100%. And the resources that we have, obviously the mission of Sims is so valuable to the community that we serve. It would be an absolute kick in the teeth for the community to lose that
mhm,
service. So, our team, and this I think is true for nonprofit professionals that work in social services and in the human services sector of the nonprofit space, right? Because you can say nonprofit, but then that's a huge umbrella.
yeah.
Specifically, those that work in human services nonprofits, um, there's a high rate of burnout. There's a high rate of compassion fatigue. There's a high
Mhm.
rate of
Compassion fatigue, that's it, yeah,
there's a
it's a good
high
phrase.
rate of tertiary trauma, right?
Yeah,
Where you are responsible for providing services to folks that are dealing with some pretty crappy life scenarios.
yes.
And how do you not internalize that after a period of time? How do you not let that impact you? How do you maintain your own mental health
Mhm,
so that you can be there to support the needs of others?
mhm,
And that's one thing that I really try to, communicate to our team is, you know, I am not expecting anybody to work 80 hours a week. If we don't have the human capital, which is by far the most important part of any organization, is its people.
period.
If you don't take care of that, then you're gonna lose, every day.
Yeah,
You have to really support those that are supporting your mission. And so,
yes.
while I've enjoyed being, part of the Sims Foundation, and I have the the luxury of being able to attend, events like this and opportunities to kind of share our mission and kind of serve as the figurehead. I just want to just thank our team for the amount of work that they put into making sure that the organization can continue to thrive and that our work can continue. There's been a lot of difficult times that our team has had to face. There's been a lot of long nights, a lot of long weekends. As you can imagine, serving the music community, when do concerts and shows go on? It's not Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
No. Yeah,
So, being asked to go, after hours and on weekends after putting in a 40, 50-hour work week, it's not the easiest at times. And so, I am a big proponent of making sure that we can, treat our team like incredible humans they are, and making sure that their time and their uh, time away from work is as valued as anybody else's.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the the community itself, has done a great job of understanding the Sims is needed. I don't think there's enough understanding of just the amount of work that goes into serving the community. You've got these
Yeah.
music centric nonprofits that I talked about. The vast majority of them staff is under 20 people.
Yeah.
Sims, we're about to hire, well, we just hired, we're about to have our eighth staff person start on Monday. So we've been
Wow.
functioning with 6, 7 staff people since I've joined. And we're serving over 700
I
people
had no idea
annually.
your staff was that small. That
Tiny.
is unbelievable, man.
We could not do the work that we do without our incredible volunteers that show up to these after hours events when we put
Yeah.
out a call. We could not do the work we do without our board of directors that uh, don't get compensated for their time to be our board, but have a passion for our mission. So
Mhm.
they're wanting to help us expand our networks, and they want to help lead the organization into the next chapter. Our advisory board
Mhm.
of just community ambassadors that have a passion for this community and have an understanding that they can bring their networks and their skills and their interests into our work.
Yeah.
It really is just incredible to see the amount of work that we can do. But it again, it is thanks to the people that support our organization, from volunteers to donors.
So it's a known fact that, professional athletes, golfers, the LeBron James, Rory McIlroy, can't say his name, Scotty Scheffler. We'll go with the Austin guy,
There you go.
Scotty Scheffler, um, and all those types of professional athletes have mental health support. And I'm sure to some extent some of the larger musicians do. But do you think as a music industry as a whole, from what you've seen, it's made its way into that? Just
Unfortunately, not yet. I have not seen that be the case, and I think that's one of the things that's being called out by artists like Chaperone and Noah
yeah,
Khan, and some other folks that have really started talking about the need for that support.
yeah.
There's this myth of the uh, the troubled artist,
Mhm.
right? There's this myth that because people, there's this creative mind that is going to veer off into emotional or mental challenges because that's just part of being creative.
Yeah.
And there was a study that was done by a previous board chair of ours, Dr. Lloyd Berg. He did a study back in 2015 after surveying a couple hundred Sims clients,
Mhm.
and what he found was data that was backed up by some previous studies that were done over in the UK. And it's not necessarily that just because somebody's a creative will mean that they're going to need higher mental health support simply because they're a creative or an artist.
Mhm.
It's the lifestyle. It's the industry practices that have kind
Yeah.
of led to this, right?
Yeah.
And so we talked about that first domino of being your mental health, right? Well, you
Mhm.
think about what are the simplest ways to care for your mental health, and it's exercise, sleep, diet,
Yep.
familial relationships,
Mhm.
and network, social circles, right? If you take care of those things, more often than not, your mental health is going to be pretty good.
Right.
In the industry of the music industry, what is what does it take to be a successful musician? You have to travel a lot. You have to practice long hours. You have to be on the road. You have to perform late at night. That's not gonna do anything beneficial for your diet or your sleep or your
It's
exercise.
literally quite the
The
flip of the
opposite,
coin.
right?
Yeah.
When you're touring, when you're on the road, when you're in studio sessions and practice sessions for long periods of time, you're not there with your significant other, you're not there with your family and friends and your social circle, so you become
Mhm.
more isolated.
Mhm.
And so again, all of the things that are important to maintaining your mental health, the music industry, in order to become successful, oftentimes require you to go against a lot of those practices
Yep.
or makes those practices more challenging, let's
Right.
say.
Right.
And so I think by some of the larger artists that have now become, there's been some viral moments where, I think it was a Chaperone like Grammy speech, I think last year, where
Mm,
she came out and called on the music industry to recognize that there's this need to support the mental health of the music, professionals, because it's not at the level of
yeah,
professional sports or other industries as it should be. So that's a great question.
yeah,
But unfortunately, I don't think we're there yet.
yeah. And so, do you have a success story that you could share without breaking any confidentiality agreements, of an individual in town that has gone through the program and has kind of been out and been public and about their experiences and how Sims helped them? And
Yeah, I have learned there are so many storied and longtime Austin musicians that have benefited from Sims's services. And I could go through the laundry list, and it would be a pretty impressive concert if we could get everybody to come together to put on a
yeah,
show who's benefited from Sims' services.
wow,
Because
that's cool.
one thing I learned real quick, my first week I started at Sims, I would go out to after hours events, and I would go to shows, and I would talk to people just to try to get a better understanding of the space and the organization. And
Yeah,
again, that term "Sims saved my life" came up over and over and over again,
mm,
and I got a chance to meet some pretty um, high level musicians here in town, with some recognizable names, and they love the work that Sims does, and told me, just about their experiences, and why they wouldn't be where they are without Sims.
yeah,
Um, Somebody, who's been doing a lot of promotion about Sims recently, who's been on our testimonial video, sung the national anthem at the Austin FC game last Saturday.
mm,
Nakia,
yeah,
is has really been a strong advocate for Sims as of late, and performed at our 30th anniversary. Um, one thing that I think was kind of a cool story at our 30th anniversary event back in May was the lead singer for Pariah, Dave Derrick. Um, Came to the event
mm,
and participated in a performance along with Kyle Ellison, who is Sims's brother. Kyle was also in Pariah.
wow,
And so Dave Derrick was the lead singer for Pariah. We had Kyle on stage as well, and they were on stage and performed a couple of songs with some of the other musicians in town. And Dave Derrick said he thought that was probably the first time he had been on stage with that group of folks in like 20 years.
that's
And
special,
so,
man.
hearing that and then seeing that the talent never goes away. I
Yeah,
mean, the stage presence
yeah,
never goes away. I
yeah,
mean, the show was killer. It was an amazing experience. And, everybody that was lucky enough to see that in the audience, I think will tell that story for a while.
that's awesome. So, what's the best way to get involved with Sims?
We have so many different ways. We are really open to, again, including people that just maybe want to give their time,
Mm,
and they want to volunteer. Again, with seven, soon to be eight of us on staff, we have so many different events, across town that get put on in benefit and support of Sims. We can't be everywhere at all times. And so we really need help for volunteers to show up and be at Hotel Vegas, or be at Sagebrush, or be at Far Out Lounge, or be at Antone's, whenever there's a concert or show going on that's benefiting the Sims Foundation. We need those ambassadors to represent us at all these different events because, again, we can't clone ourselves yet. So
yeah,
volunteering is huge. Talents, people that want to volunteer their talents. Maybe somebody's a graphic arts, designer. Maybe somebody's an event, producer. Maybe somebody is a grant writer and they want to, donate their time to help us further our mission and help us, accomplish the work that we need. Treasure,
mm,
donations, again, no money, no mission.
no money, no mission.
We need to have resources to help fund the care that we give. We are able to be incredibly efficient with our donors' funds. And that's one thing that we really value ourselves on, is being able to earn our donors' trust,
Mhm,
because without their trust, they're not going to give treasure. And
yeah, yeah,
that's understandably, we have the ability to use our existing services, our existing provider network, to make someone's $20 donation turn into $60 value of care, right?
yeah.
And don't quote me, on that
No, but
exact, but
yeah,
you get the point.
yeah,
And so, we have a lot of information on our website, simsfoundation.org, about how people can get involved. There's a volunteer application on our website they can go to. There's a donation form that they can fill out. We have there's a benefit going on here in a couple of weeks called Meadowfest.
Yeah.
We're one of the beneficiaries of that. And so come on out to that, and check out some really cool music. Come up to our table, learn about how to get involved. We have an online merch store. We
Yeah.
have some cool hats and shirts. We just had some new Pride shirts come out for Austin Pride
All
in
right.
August. And so, there's all different kinds of ways to get involved. Basically, my message is if you love music, if you love the music community, if you are in Austin because you love the identity of the live music capital of the world, then you should want to support Sims Foundation in
Yeah.
some form or fashion. And so just reach out, go onto our website, check it out. We've got a really cool event coming up in September on September 10th. It's called Music for the Mind.
Yes.
We're going to have a really cool concert. We're probably going to have three different artists or so. We'll put out some more information about that this
Yeah.
week. So be on the lookout for that. But it'll be a fundraising event on September 10th. There's tickets to that. There's still tickets available. They're going quick. So get
Yeah.
online and get
Well,
them.
it's celebrating a very important individual in the Austin scene.
100%. It is the first Sims Ellison Impact Award that we're going to be recognizing, and we're going to be honoring Steve Wertheimer, owner of Continental Club and Sea Boys.
Yeah.
Anybody in the music, community knows that the work that he's done to elevate musicians here in
Yeah.
town has just been monumental, and so
Yeah.
really honored and humbled to be able to honor Steve at that event, and recognize his hard work.
Yeah.
Liz Lambert's going to be a guest MC there as well, another Austin icon.
Yep.
And so again, this is the 30th year of Sims Foundation. We want to make sure that we're growing our resources for support so that we can continue to grow our services for the next 30 years.
So if resources were unlimited, what is the number one thing, the first big initiative you think that you guys would do?
We go national like that. Again, we know there is such a huge need for our services in other rich music communities that don't have services like
Yeah.
Sims. If resources weren't an issue, then we would be able to serve everybody in the continental United States and beyond.
Mhm.
Again, we understand there is just a large amount of need that is going unmet right now.
Yes.
And so if we had unlimited resources, then we would have unlimited services.
Love it. So you touched on it a few times, but I gotta ask, I guess in 3 sentences or less, I'm just kidding. But what is your definition of the live music capital of the world? And again, you've answered a couple times already, but
Yeah. It's the live music capital of the world is the intentional support for the music community that the rest of the community takes so much pride in enjoying the product of their labor and their art,
yeah,
right? It's it's the recognition that we have a special place where creatives can come to work with other creatives of different genres, maybe create something that's never been thought of before, maybe come together and shine a light on areas of support that they need that hasn't been recognized in the past. I think when you are taking pride in providing space for creatives to thrive, then it says a lot about the community's value of people's innate abilities in the creative spaces. And so the live music capital of the world it's the intention and the deliberate focus on supporting that community and the recognition that it can go away if it's not supported.
well said. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So what's the long term 5 to 10 year goal for Sims?
Expansion. Again, I don't imagine resources will become unlimited in the next 5 to 10 years,
Yeah.
but the goal is to continue to work on growing the resources, right? And so that's always the goal is how do we serve more people? How do we serve more people better? And in order to do that, we have to get outside of our bubble that we've been in.
Yeah.
So how can we leverage our network of ambassadors through the board and advisory board and through our chambers of commerce and the corporate boardrooms that can really give us the resources needed to expand services beyond our 6, 7 county service area that
Mhm.
we've been in. And so my goal is, and our goal is to really look at, what does this expansion into Comal County look like? If that's successful, can we explore going into other music friendly cities here in Texas? Do we jump into a national scope of being able to support East Coast, West Coast, North, South, Midwest? So many rich music communities throughout the states that would kill for an organization like Sims to be in their backyard.
Right.
And so we know the needs there, we know the desire is there. Now we just have to put together the pieces to make sure that we can get the resources to make it happen.
Well, and I agree, and I appreciate you coming on today and sharing your story and sharing the story of Sims. You touched on it already. You'll obviously have a website. You're all over social media. You have your event on the 10th. Where is that event?
It's going to be at Assembly Hall.
Assembly Hall.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it is, it's a small venue. I think we're only going to fit about 220 people or so.
Okay.
So we've already sold over half the tickets and tables. So definitely check us out and go to our website and get your tickets soon.
All right. Well, thank you again. Really enjoyed the conversation and look forward to the growth, the continued growth of Sims Foundation.
Thanks, Stephen.
All right.
Likewise with the Music People podcast. Keep it up, man.
Thank you, man. See you, everybody. Thanks for listening. Know someone we should talk to? Give us a shout on Instagram at Austin Music People. Tell your friends, tell your family, and get out there and support Austin music.